You feel it the second you walk into that room. The air is thick. The walls are warm to the touch. It is worse inside than it is outside, and the sun went down an hour ago. You have shut the curtains. You have run the fan. You have thought about dropping $3,000 on a new air conditioner just to make one bedroom livable. But before you spend a single dollar on a machine, I want to show you a $5 fix that Chinese families have used for centuries to keep their homes cool without electricity. It stops the heat before it ever gets inside, and it works so well because nobody could ever package it and sell it to you. I learned it from an old man on a narrow lane in Beijing, in a courtyard home where the bedrooms stayed cool at noon while the street outside was baking. Stay with me, because at the end I will show you the forgotten version that turns this fix into a cooler that costs almost nothing to run. And if you rent, do not click away. Every part of this works with no permission and nothing drilled into a wall. Let me tell you how I found out I had been doing it all wrong for years. For the longest time I thought curtains were curtains. Hot day, close the curtains, done. I bought the thick blackout ones. I paid almost $40 for a pair that promised to block the heat, and every summer afternoon my bedroom still turned into an oven by 3 o'clock. I would put my hand near the closed curtain and feel warmth pouring off the fabric like it was a radiator. That is the moment that changed everything for me, and I did not even understand it yet. The curtain was hot. Think about that. If the curtain is hot, the heat is already inside your room. You did not block it, you caught it. You trapped it against your window and let it slowly leak into the air you breathe all night. Here is what is actually happening, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Sunlight comes through your glass as light. Light passes through glass easily, but the moment that light lands on something inside your room, your floor, your furniture, your curtain, it turns into heat. And heat does not pass back out through the glass the same way. It gets stuck. Your window becomes a one-way door. Light walks in, heat cannot walk out. That is the exact same trick that makes a greenhouse warm in winter, and it is cooking your bedroom in summer. So when you close a curtain on the inside of your window, the sunlight has already crossed the glass. It has already entered the room. Your curtain absorbs it and heats up, and now you have a warm object sitting in your room radiating heat for hours. The heat is inside. The battle is already lost. The numbers on this are brutal, and once I read them, I felt cheated. Home energy researchers have measured it again and again. An interior curtain or blind, the kind almost everyone owns, blocks only about 20 to 35% of the heat from the sun. That is it. The rest is already in your room. But shade placed on the outside of the glass, stopping the sunlight before it ever touches the window, blocks up to 75, even 80% of that heat. Same sun, same window. The only difference is which side of the glass you stop the light on. That is the whole secret in one sentence. You have to stop the sun outside the glass, not inside. Everyone I know does it inside. Every curtain in every store is sold to hang inside. And that is why they all fail on the hottest days. But knowing you need to block the sun outside raises a much harder question. What do you hang out there? You cannot tape a blackout curtain to the outside of your house. So, how did people solve this before there was a single machine to buy? Because they did solve it, completely, in climates far hotter than yours. That question is what sent me down the road that changed how I live in summer. And it starts in the old courtyard homes of China. The house I told you about, the one on the narrow lane in Beijing, is called a courtyard home. 4 low buildings around an open square in the middle. These homes were designed hundreds of years ago, long before electricity, in a city where summer easily climbs past 95, even 100 degrees. And people lived through it. They slept at night. They cooked. Old people and babies survived those summers in rooms that stayed bearable. They had to be doing something right. The first thing they did was the thing I just told you. They hung shade on the outside. Not curtains. Reed curtains and bamboo blinds, rolled mats made of thin, split bamboo or dried reeds, tied above the window and hung down on the outside of the wall. When the sun came around, they rolled these down over the outside of the window. The sunlight hit the reed mat, not the glass. The heat was stopped a hand's width away from the house, out in the open air, where the breeze could carry it off before it ever reached the room. That is the entire principle of that 75% number, done with dried grass and string, hundreds of years before a scientist ever measured it. But they took it further, and this is the part that made my jaw drop when the old man described it to me. In old Beijing, wealthy families and even ordinary courtyard households would hire crews every single summer to build something called a tian peng. It means sky shed or heaven awning. Every spring, teams of workers would come with long bamboo poles and huge woven reed mats and build a giant temporary roof high over the entire open courtyard, not touching the house. Floating above it, held up on poles. Think about what that does. The whole courtyard, the paved ground, the walls, the windows, all of it sat in cool shade all summer long, while the sun beat down only on the mat roof far overhead. And because the shed was raised on poles with open sides, hot air rose up and slid out the edges instead of pooling below. In the autumn, when the days cooled, the crews came back and took the whole thing down so the winter sun could warm the courtyard again. Up in summer, down in winter. It was so common that it was a regular trade, a normal seasonal expense in old records of city life, like paying for coal in winter. Let that sink in. A whole neighborhood tradition, a whole profession, built around one idea: shade the outside, block the light before it lands. They understood, without any of our tools, that the war against summer heat is won or lost on the outside of the glass. So here is the plain version for your home, and it costs almost nothing. A rolled reed or bamboo blind, the kind sold for a few dollars at almost any hardware store or market, hung on the outside of your sunniest window. Not the inside, the outside. Roll it down when the sun hits that side of the house. Roll it up when the sun moves away. That one move does more than the $40 blackout curtain ever did for me, because it is fighting the heat in the right place, in the open air, before the glass turns your room into a trap. I did this on my worst window, the west-facing one that used to roast me every evening. The first hot afternoon after I hung it, I put my hand on the inside of that glass out of pure habit, waiting for that radiator warmth. It was cool. For the first time in years, the glass was cool in the afternoon. I actually laughed out loud in an empty room. But shade alone is only half of what those courtyard homes were doing, because a shaded room with dead, still air is still a stuffy room. The old builders knew that too, and the second half of their trick is something your expensive air conditioner cannot give you at all. Here is the thing nobody tells you about those courtyard homes. They were not just shaded. They were designed to breathe. Walk into one on a hot day and you feel it before you understand it. There is a soft, steady current of air moving through the rooms, even when the outside air feels dead still. The old man had a name for it. He called it the through-hall wind, a draft that runs straight through the house and out the other side, pulling the hot, stale air out with it and dragging cooler air in behind. This is not magic, and it is not luck. It was built on purpose. The doors and windows in those homes were placed to line up, front to back, so that air had a clear path straight through. Open a window on the cool, shaded side, open another on the far side, and air begins to flow along that path all on its own. Warm air is always trying to move. Give it a door in and a door out, and it will move for free all day, using nothing but the difference in pressure and temperature between one side of your home and the other. Now here is where most people get it wrong, and I got it wrong for years too. On a hot night I used to open every window in the place thinking more open windows meant more air. Wrong. When everything is open equally, the air just sits there. There is no push, no pull, no direction. What actually moves air is a difference. A small opening on one side and a larger opening on the other. The air squeezes in fast through the small gap, like your thumb over a hose, and rushes through the room before it slides out the big opening on the far side. So try this tonight, and it costs you nothing. Once the outside air cools below your indoor temperature, usually after the sun goes down, find the window on the cool, shaded side of your home. Open it just a hand's width. Then go to a window or door on the opposite side of your home and open that one wide. Now the cool air is forced in through the small gap in a fast stream, and it drives the hot air out the far side. You have just built the through-hall wind in your own home. No courtyard required. There is a second layer to this that the courtyard families lived by, and it is about timing. Heat is a guest you have to lock out during the day and release at night. In the daytime, when the outside air is hotter than inside, you keep the sunny windows shut and shaded, holding the cool of the night inside like water in a cup. Then at night, when the outside finally drops below the inside, you throw the place open and flush all that trapped daytime heat out. Shut in the morning, open at night. Most people do the exact opposite. They leave windows open all hot afternoon, letting the oven air pour in, then shut everything at night out of habit, sealing the heat inside to bake them while they sleep. If you want to go deeper into fixes like this one, the kind that work because they understand the problem, not just the symptom, I put the most useful of them into a book called House Fixes. It covers the same kind of thinking you are getting right now. Practical, low-cost solutions that have been quietly doing the job for generations. You can find it linked in the description below. Now, back to the question that changes everything about how you apply this. I know what some of you are thinking right now, and you are the exact person I made this next part for. You are thinking, this is fine for someone who owns a house, but I rent. I cannot hang things off the outside of the building. I cannot go changing windows. My landlord would lose his mind. Stay with me, because this next part is for you specifically, and it is the part I am proudest of. You do not need to own anything, drill anything, or change anything permanent to use every single thing I have told you. Here is how a renter does it. For the outside shade, you do not need to mount anything into the wall. You can get a rolled reed or bamboo blind and hang it from the top of the window frame or the balcony rail using removable outdoor hooks, the kind with a sticky pad or a clamp that peels off clean and leaves no mark. If you have any kind of ledge, railing, or overhang, you can hang that reed mat on the outside from it. When you move out, it all comes down in 5 minutes and goes with you. No holes, no damage, nothing to explain. If you truly cannot reach the outside of your window at all, high-floor apartment, sealed windows, there is still a version that beats the inside curtain. Get the most reflective thing you can and put it as close to the glass as possible, facing out. A panel of that shiny bubble insulation, the silver stuff, or even a sunshade made for a car windshield pressed right up against the glass with the silver side facing the sun. It is not as good as true outside shade, but reflective and tight against the glass throws a good part of that sunlight straight back out before it can turn into trapped heat. It costs a few dollars. It peels away whenever you want, and your landlord never knows. For the through-hall wind, there is nothing to install at all. It is just which windows you open and how wide, and the timing of day and night. A renter can do that tonight, in any apartment, for free. That alone will change how you sleep. And there is one more renter move, the simplest of all. A single box fan in the right window at night, facing outward, not inward. Most people point the fan at their body and feel a little breeze while the room stays hot. Instead, put the fan in a window on the warm side of your home at night, blowing out. It shoves the hot inside air out into the night, and that pulls cool night air in through the windows you left open on the other side. You are not just stirring hot air around your face anymore. You are pumping the heat out of the whole place. One cheap fan, aimed the right way, turns your whole apartment into that breathing courtyard. So a renter can shade the outside, reflect the sun, build the through wind, and pump the heat out at night, all without a drill, a landlord, or a single permanent change. Everything I promised you can do by this weekend. But I told you at the start there was a forgotten version of this fix. The one that does not just block heat, but actually makes the incoming air colder. This is the piece that was almost lost, the piece nobody sells, and once you understand it, you will wonder how it ever got buried. Here is the question that finally cracked it open for me. Shade stops heat. A breeze moves air, but neither of those actually makes air colder than the air already outside. So how did people in truly brutal heat, before any machine existed, get air that felt genuinely cool, not just moving? The answer is the oldest cooling trick on earth, and the old man showed it to me with nothing but that same reed curtain and a bowl of water. You wet the curtain. That is it. That is the whole secret. But let me tell you why it works. Because when you understand the why, you will never doubt it. When water evaporates, when it turns from liquid into vapor and floats away, it has to grab a huge amount of heat to make that change. Enormous amounts. To turn even a small cup of water into vapor, the water must pull heat out of everything around it, out of the air, out of the surface it is sitting on. Every single gram of water that evaporates drags a big load of heat away with it into the sky. So picture it. You have your reed curtain hanging on the outside of your window, already shading the glass. Now you wet it down with water. The dry breeze comes through that damp reed mat, and as it passes, the water in the mat evaporates into that moving air. And to evaporate, it steals the heat right out of the breeze. The air that comes through the other side is genuinely, measurably cooler than the air that went in. Not just shaded air, chilled air, air that gave up its heat to the water on your curtain. This is the same reason you feel cold stepping out of a shower into a moving room, even a warm room. The water on your skin is evaporating and pulling heat straight off your body. It is the same reason a clay pot of water stays cool in the desert, and the reason a wet cloth on the back of your neck cools your whole body. The people of old China knew this in their bones. They hung wet reed blinds in doorways. They draped damp cloth in windows. They set out shallow basins of water where the breeze crossed them. In hot, dry weather, this can pull the air down by several degrees, enough to turn a stuffy room into a room you can actually sleep in, all from water evaporating in a breeze. And here is your $5 finale, the whole thing put together. Hang a reed or bamboo blind on the outside of your sunniest window. That is the shade, blocking most of the heat before it hits the glass, just like the sky sheds over the old Beijing courtyards. Then take a simple spray bottle, $1 or $2, fill it with plain water, and mist that reed blind until it is damp, not dripping, just damp. Do it in the late afternoon when the heat is worst and the air is driest. As your evening breeze moves through that damp mat, it comes out the far side cooler than it went in, and it flows through your open window into a room that is already shaded and already breathing. Shade, breeze, and evaporation, stacked on top of each other. The three things those courtyard homes did every summer for hundreds of years, and every part of it costs less than the tax on a new air conditioner. Re-wet the mat every couple of hours on the hottest, driest days, and you have a cooling system running on a spray bottle and a reed curtain. On a dry heat day, it will genuinely surprise you. I stood in front of my damp reed blind on a 100-degree afternoon and felt the air coming through it go cool against my arm, and I thought about that old man on the narrow lane, and I understood that I had been paying money for years to solve a problem that a bowl of water had already solved centuries ago. One honest note, because I will never lie to you to sell a trick. This evaporation part works best in dry heat. If you live somewhere the air is already thick and wet and heavy, the water cannot evaporate as easily, so the wetting trick gives you less. But the shade, blocking the sun on the outside of the glass, and the through-hall wind, and pumping heat out at night, those work everywhere, in every climate, for everyone. And even in humid places, the wet mat still does something on the driest, hottest afternoons. Now let me say the part that took me the longest to accept, and it is the part that still makes me a little angry. None of this was ever hidden by some grand conspiracy. It is worse than that in a way. It was simply forgotten, because there was no money in remembering it. Nobody can put a through-hall wind in a box and sell it to you. Nobody can charge you a monthly bill for opening the right window at the right time. There is no profit in a reed mat and a spray bottle of tap water. So the knowledge that could not be sold quietly slipped out of our homes, and in its place came the machine with the price tag and the power bill. The families in those courtyards were not richer than you. They were not smarter than you. They simply held on to knowledge that we let go of, because ours got replaced by something with a salesman attached. Every summer that old man rolled his reed blind down over his window and misted it with water while the rest of the city reached for a switch. He kept the fix alive on that narrow lane, and he handed it to a skeptical stranger who did not believe him until he felt cool air come off a wet mat with his own skin. Now I am handing it to you. You did not just learn a trick to save a few dollars. You took back something that belonged to ordinary people long before it belonged to any company, a way to stay cool that no one can ever put on a shelf and charge you for again. That is yours now. Nobody can sell it back to you. And that is who you are, if you made it this far. You are the kind of person who refuses to hand over $3,000 for a problem a spray bottle and a reed mat can solve. You would rather understand the why than keep paying for the machine. So here is what I want you to tell me. On your home, which window is the worst one? The one that turns into an oven every afternoon. And which direction does it face? Tell me in the comments, because the direction that window faces changes exactly when you should roll that shade down, and I read these and answer them. Drop it below right now before you forget. And if you want more of these, the cheap, honest fixes that got buried because nobody could bottle them and sell them back to us, come along with me. That is what we do here. We dig them up and hand them back. Because the next one I am working on is about the one cheap thing you can pour down a slow, smelly kitchen drain, straight from an old Chinese kitchen, that clears it without a single drop of chemical, and there is a reason your plumber never told you about it. I will see you there. Before you go, one thing. Inside the Old Home Wisdom, I pick up right where we just stopped and walk you through that forgotten outdoor cooler build, step by step. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You'd be joining thousands of thrifty homeowners already inside. Just point your phone camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time with one click. If this helped you stay cool and save money, why not subscribe and stick around? I have plenty more simple, practical tips like these waiting for you, right here on the channel.